So if you have just got a new cutting machine and you're still figuring out the ropes, or even if you've had one for a while and you feel like you're not quite mastering vinyl decals, then there might be a few things you can try and change up and it might make your life a little bit easier. So I thought I would just go over a few of those in this video. Firstly though, do check out my new course on Skillshare, the beginner's guide to making, weeding and applying vinyl decals to lots of different surfaces, as well as how to layer them, and it includes lots of tips and tricks and advice as well. So if you are a newbie, check that out. It's free for 1 month for all new Skillshare members. But for those mistakes that you might be making. So firstly, it could be that you're using the wrong cut setting. When it comes to cut settings, vinyl isn't always going to be the correct choice. It does usually make it a bit easier if you're using a Cricut machine and you've just got a load of new Cricut vinyl, because you can just look at the type of vinyl it is and it's usually in the custom menu unless you're using standard vinyl, in which case it should just be the vinyl setting on your machine. But if you have a different machine, an older blade, you're buying a different brand of vinyl or a specialty vinyl, then it may require a few test cuts to make sure you have the right setting selected. I've had some vinyl in the past which was an absolute nightmare to cut, and I ended up wasting loads of it just trying to find the right cut setting. So don't do what I did and try to cut a full design straight away. Always do a little test cut with a small shape in the corner of your vinyl first, and make sure that has cut all the way around, that it's peeling and weeding fine before you go ahead and make your full design. And that way you end up avoiding wasting all of your vinyl, using bad quality vinyl or the wrong transfer tape. So speaking of bad vinyl, when I first started out, I was using Cricut vinyl and I was just having a load of issues with it. And also it was expensive, so it was costing me a lot to just kind of practice and figure things out with Cricut vinyl. So then I switched to Richrama permanent vinyl and I literally never looked back. It's such good quality and you can get it at a really good price as well. I do also use Oracle occasionally as well, which you can get for a pretty good price too, and is again great quality and is what a lot of crafters use. Check out my vinyl suppliers list if you need to find a supplier in your area, and take a look at a few of them to see who has good deals on as well, so make sure you're getting the best price. So then once you definitely have a good quality vinyl, you know that's cutting fine, you also need to make sure you're using the right type of transfer tape or transfer paper. It needs to be the right kind of stickiness that it will lift your vinyl from the backing paper, but also that it will be easy to remove once you've applied the vinyl to your surface as well. So low tack transfer tape paper can sometimes not even pull the vinyl off the backing paper, but then high tack could be so tacky that it won't remove from your surface and it could end up damaging the surface you're putting it on. That's why I tend to choose like a medium tack transfer tape, but then again it could just depend on your vinyl. If you've got a really thin vinyl, then a low tack might be fine. A really thick vinyl, then you might need a high tack vinyl. So it might just be a case of trying out a few, just get some sample pieces or smaller rolls and seeing which one works best, especially if you're going to be using vinyls a lot. Making designs too thin. So I have mentioned this before in my how to choose fonts for decals video. If you want to check that out, I'll pop the link here. But when it comes to choosing SVGs and fonts, you really need to be looking for things that aren't too thin, especially if you're making quite small designs like labels, because if they're too thin, they will just rip when you're cutting them and you won't have enough surface area to stick them properly to whatever you're putting them on, and they'll just end up peeling off in time. There are lots of fonts out there that are still really elegant, but a bit thicker. If that is what you're worried about, check out places like Creative Market and Font Bundles. They've got loads of different ones to choose from. And then the same goes for SVGs as well. Try not to choose anything that is too thin, too complicated, has lots of tiny little bits in it, especially when you're just starting out and learning how to do things, because you're just setting yourself up to have a nightmare if it's too fiddly. Trying to weed in the dark. So you need good lighting in order to weed your designs. Ideally natural lighting I find the best, or you can use a light box. if you have one underneath your designs to see where the lines are. That makes it really easy. But without this, if you're using overhead lighting, you're going to have a lot of shadows and it's going to make it really difficult to see the cut lines and kind of where you're supposed to be weeding, and you might accidentally end up taking off the wrong bit or putting like a hole with your weeding tool into the wrong section as well. I've done this quite a few times. So now what I try to do, especially in winter when there is less daylight hours, I will cut everything out on my machine in kind of the late afternoon when it's dark, and then the morning after is when I will weed and cut out all of my designs and get them ready to go. If you aren't able to do that though, and you find yourself kind of making stuff in the evening quite a lot, then you could maybe use like 1 or 2 lamps in front of you so that you're not casting any shadows underneath your hands, and then hopefully that will make it easier. You're using adhesive vinyl instead of a different material or technique. So adhesive vinyl is amazing. This is what this whole channel is basically about, and there's so many different uses for it, but it can't be used for everything. In some cases, iron-on vinyl would be better, especially when it comes to soft materials, and there are some things that you'd be surprised that iron-on vinyl can be used for as well, like mugs and wood. And sometimes that will just make it last a little bit longer because of the heat that has adhered it to the surface. Then if you want something to be multicoloured, it may be easier to do print and cut on your machine and make a sticker rather than do layered vinyl, especially if you're going to need like tons of layers to get the design that you want. Or it may be the case that sublimation or screen printing or a completely different technique or material is actually better for the type of thing that you want to do. Just depends on what you're making, how long you want it to last for, and if you're going to sell it as well. You really need to weigh up the different options. If you're unsure of what you should use for the thing you're trying to make, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try and answer as best as I can. Or if you look up what you're trying to make on Pinterest or YouTube, there will no doubt be a tutorial for it, and I'll give you the best options for what it is you're trying to achieve. And that was just a quick overview of a few things you might want to try if you're having issues. There are lots of other things. Again, as I said, check out Pinterest, YouTube, look at the rest of my videos. There might be something on there that can help you with what you're trying to do. And just remember that when you're first starting out, if you've just got your machine, it can get a little bit overwhelming. There's so much you can do with it. It can get a little bit frustrating at times as well, especially when things go wrong. But honestly, the more you use it, the more you practice, you'll just get more confident with it and it will get a lot easier. Do let me know if you have any other questions in the comments section and I'll try my best to help. But otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, follow and subscribe for more videos like this in future.